Hi, folks. I just started a recording. Thanks for joining the meeting. Let's see. All right, we have folks adding content to the agenda. Do we have the first person, Tanuj? I don't know if I pronounced your name right. Let me check if you're on. Are you here? I don't see him. All right, let's jump on the second topic. Ben, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me go ahead. Well, actually, I probably won't share.
Do you want me to share? I can share for you.
Yeah. Let's probably need to share the notes anyway.
Let me share that as you talk. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So this is also going to be covered in the ambient meeting, but the sidecar part of this is we have this existing traffic.sidecar.io kubevert interfaces. Which is an relatively old sidecar label that basically lets you treat certain virtual interfaces for certain kinds of pods, especially where inbound traffic is treated as outbound. The long story short is that you need this for stuff like Docker and Docker sometimes, specific pods. You need this for like some kubevert scenarios. We ran into a tailscale issue where you'd need to do this if you're running a tailscale subnet router. It's basically that's the sidecar analog. We wanted to add an equivalent in ambient for that because for those same cases, would still need it. So the question really here is, one, if we add a new thing in ambient that does the same thing, should we deprecate the sidecar version and use the same annotation across both? And if we do, which one of these should it be? I'm generally in favor. Zhonghu is the one who suggested deprecating the old sidecar one, which is currently alpha, so that's not a real hard lift. And replacing it with this one that will span both ambient and sidecar. I think that's a reasonably good idea. I think we should probably do that and deprecate the old sidecar only kubevert interfaces and replace it with one of these options, which will work for both ambient and sidecar. Thoughts on that? Preferences for which one we pick? Go for it. Thumbs up is fine for which one you would prefer.
Is the reason we wouldn't use the existing annotation for ambient because it has the word sidecar in it?
Yeah, it's literally traffic.sidecar.istio.io. And we've said we don't support any of the sidecar dot annotations in ambient explicitly, and we shouldn't because they're very specific to that in a lot of cases. This one happens to be a crossover.
Yeah, one thing too is the name is terrible. It's called kubevert interfaces, but kubevert's just one of the use cases for it. So the name is better even regardless of the sidecar.
Do we have other traffic.istio namespace labels?
I don't think so, and we also don't have any traffic dot stuff in ambient. It's all ambient.istio.io or istio.io.
In that case, my vote would be for the simpler of the two, istio.io/.
There is also the fact that we might introduce another similar kind of thing on the ambient side for DNS exclusions. So if we wanted to take the opportunity, playing devil's advocate, to introduce a generic traffic.istio.io now, we could. If on the assumption that there will be more, but I'm putting it up for a vote because I don't really care.
Keith, what's your thought?
I don't know how much John's message is captures some of what I'm about to say here. I don't know how I feel about the the prefix.istio.io labels. It feels like just another thing for users to have to remember. It's like, oh, it's not istio.io dot, it's traffic.istio.io dot. And like now that we're in a single istio model, like it made sense when we had different control plane components. Now that we just have istio, kind of feels redundant and not helpful to not redundant, but it feels unhelpful to the user to have to remember a prefix versus where there's so much that's just istio.io.
Why are we creating the grouping, basically, is the question we ask. Should be asking when we name these things, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think for stuff like, that's explicitly only ambient or explicitly only sidecar, we have the ambient dot, sidecar dot, and I think that isn't a bad approach for those things, which are, it's messaging to people that you can only use these for this particular mode, but that is not what this is. So do we want like a top level traffic dot? I kind of agree that we don't, because I don't think it doesn't help. It doesn't solve any problem for us. And it is just another thing for a user to remember is kind of where I come down on it, but I could be persuaded either way. But that's all I've got. So I think, so I guess the question one, are we okay deprecating the old one? Is that a reasonable, is anybody opposed to that?
I think it's reasonable. The only thing is we probably have to have it around for a long time.
Well, it's an alpha, so I don't know if we necessarily have to keep it for that long.
Given the cost to keeping it is extremely minimal, what I would recommend is we deprecate it in the sense that in the docs we say it's deprecated, and then we just keep it around for forever. I mean, if in a couple of years we're really bored, maybe we clean it up.
Yeah.
But there's no real need to, because we can easily just have like, if old one use it, if new one use it, else old one. It's like one line of code. So.
Okay. So deprecation, nobody objects to that. And as to which of these, unless somebody makes a good argument for traffic dot here, I'm going to go with the top one. So speak now.
That makes sense. Now, do we want to rename this whole thing? Because I heard some complaints about like is the virtual interface the right name?
I think anybody who's curious about that or has thoughts about that or wants to formulate thoughts, please click through the discussion in the PR there for the Istio API repo. But the long and the short of it is, it's a very niche thing that you really can't use unless you know exactly that you need to use it. And it does always apply, as far as I know, to virtual interfaces. So I struggled to come up with a more descriptive and more generic name, but I think that this is what it does, and that's what it's for. So if you don't know what that is, don't use it. That's the best I got. Better suggestions, yeah, John, like John said, suggestions welcome. Drop them in there if you got them. Otherwise, we'll go with this.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so it was the KubeVirt. That's when people have trouble because it's a very specific interface.
Right, and we already know it works for things that are not KubeVirt now. So.
Yeah, I think this is great because I don't have to worry about this as a user if I don't need it, right? If I understood it correctly, I only need it if my environment is very, very specific and I have to config this like Docker in Docker as an example.
Right. If we don't have a doc saying you should apply this label if you're using Tailscale subnet router or using Docker and Docker in this way, if we don't have a doc that says to apply this, you should never use it. And we can mention that in the documentation we do for it. But I would hope that generally applies to most Istio labels. If you don't know what it does, you shouldn't just use it, but
Sounds good. Does anybody have any concerns? Stephen, did you have a hand? I thought you raised your hand for a second, but maybe I looked at it wrong.
I had it up for a second, but I think I'm good.
All right. Any other concerns? If not, I guess consider this approved and do reach out if you have strong opinions on the names. Reroute virtual interfaces. All right, thank you so much, Ben, for bringing this up for discussion. Do we have any other topics for today? All right, if not, I'd love to. Oh, please go ahead, please.
Sorry, this is more of a meta question rather than like a topic to discuss. But now that Ambient is GA, do we find that there is sufficient value in having a separate Ambient working group meeting versus this combined working group meeting?
That's a great question, honestly, especially if we don't have enough topic. Can we think about the history? Do we feel like we have enough topic on the combined working group meeting? Because if not, we could potentially just make one meeting and save people's time. And then we have both combined maybe at this time or in 45 minutes so that we don't consume 2 hours of people's time every week. Okay, so Mitch said I like one meeting. Does anyone else have an opinion? I've noticed we've been kind of a shorter meeting quite a bit. So it does seems to combining make sense. Because I know there are times I join ambient meeting, we just have 15 minutes. And there are times I join this meeting, there's only 15 minutes topic. Keith, go ahead.
I think I like the idea of one meeting, but I also like the idea of the 2-hour time slot, because there have been times where we have a long meeting in the in this meeting, the combined working group meeting, and then there is equally as much to discuss in the ambient meeting. Agree, like a 2-hour meeting with no breaks is not great, but again, I also like the idea of sorting by topic. This is all also sort of caught up in the whole idea of working groups, where historically in Istio we had different working groups at different meetings, and that's just a way too much infrastructure. But maybe I don't know. Maybe a good middle ground is you make the habit of you keep the current setup of 2 meetings, but if there's less topics in the combined working group meeting, we bump topics into the combined from the ambient meeting. And then if we find less and less, if we find like 1 hour covers it, we can move to 1. I'm just cognizant of the fact that like this 2 hours at the time that the Istio community gets a chance to come together. We can get a lot done here. I think we also could maybe stand to get more done in these meetings rather than just discuss topics. Maybe we should have issue triage on hot button issues or things like that. Talk about release planning. There's a lot that we could potentially do here. And I'm not necessarily trying to be prescriptive about what we do, but I like the current amount of time. What I'm not sure of is how best to organize it. Ian, go ahead.
As a practical matter, if we sort of cut the combined working group short and bump an ambient topic up, how would someone who was only planning to attend the ambient for their item like know that that's happening, since it's like a game time decision? So that might be better to just have it be officially no ambient meeting, but some sort of like spillover possibility or something. I don't know the mechanics of that, but there could be a little confusion with just...
Maybe we say that decisions get front loaded. So decisions happen at the beginning of the meeting, if that's what you need to participate in. And then if we're doing things like release planning or figuring out some of our test and release migrations that we need to do over the next year, that comes after all of the like official decision agenda items. Would that work for you, Ian?
And so there would be like, if you have a decision that's only concerning ambient, it would still be in the combined working group and front loaded. Is that the idea?
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that would I think address the possibly hypothetical point that I brought up. So I'm not opposed to it.
We could also do the fun thing of starting a timer per topic and saying we can spend at most 30 minutes on one topic or something, but that's a little
Right, if we have enough topic. So here's what I'm thinking. So ambient just become GA, right? We just got back from KubeCon. So how about we continue to hold 2 meetings for the rest of the year, which we don't have many weeks because Thanksgiving week will probably cancel, and there's also 2 weeks for Christmas, right? So, and then based on the trends of the next few meetings, we can come together in January and then decide, does it make sense to combine? If it does, how we want to operate the combined meeting. But since we're talking about like 3 to 4 weeks for the rest of the year and ambient just become GA, I feel like maybe we can collect a little bit more data and then make the decision for that. Because I agree 2 hours meeting are not great for us, especially for us on the East Coast. It's right at our lunchtime too. So yeah, so I would love to kind of, think about this a little bit more, and let's huddle together based on the data we're going to collect in the next few weeks, and then let's huddle together in January to make a decision. But this is a great topic, Keith, you brought up.
That sounds like a good plan of action to me.
Yeah, one thing just to note too is in the past we often try to optimize the meetings around how busy they are and whatnot. It's very cyclical in terms of like busy planning cycles and then busy execution cycles that don't require much discussion, and busy not working on Istio because it's the holidays. So, so I just don't want to over optimize and be like, oh, we have no agenda, let's make it 30 minutes or whatever. Like it's fine if we don't fill it the whole time every time. I'm sure that like right now it's probably somewhat dead time. And I'm sure that sometime soon we'll start to have all of a sudden 15 items on the agenda. So
yeah, makes sense. All right, is there anything else we should be discussing? So let's, I'll write some notes for this so we can refirst surface this topic in January. All right, I'm not hearing anything. Thank you all so much for joining. Talk to you soon. Bye.